Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Exploring Places Unknown. I'm your host, Trey, and today I have a special guest on. Her name is Kristi, and today we're going to figure out what in the world's going on with her. She has a unique story, and we want to dive into some of her story of what has gone on in her life and take away some positive things from it. So, Kristi, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. Just being a mom.
Just being a mom, you
Yeah.
had a pretty good day, or
Yeah, it's been pretty good. The baby and I took a pretty long nap this morning. We had to run a couple errands, but we took a nap and ate lunch and just having a morning.
so I know this is your first time ever doing a podcast episode.
Yes.
All right. Have you done like any media or anything like that before?
I mean, I've done like modeling here and there, but nothing like video.
Okay. Okay. I got into the podcast thing because I feel like everyone has a story. And so I just wanted to talk about my experiences and kind of hear other people's stories. So I was like, you know what? Let me have Kristi on because I feel like you have a very unique story and some of the things you've been through. And what is something that you want to kind of start with, like maybe childhood or anything like that? Like, what are
Yeah.
some of the experiences that you had?
So growing up, I actually grew up in a Christian home. Funny enough, my mom comes from a very big family. She has four sisters, and all four of them actually married pastors.
Whoa.
Yeah, my mom's the only one that didn't. My dad is very hands-on. He's owned a landscaping business since he was a kid. I think even before 16 out in Wisconsin. He just went and mowed yards and made his money that way. And then it's transitioned several different times and now he builds houses. So it's very different from my mom's sisters who they all married, but it's definitely been a roller coaster of Christian household for sure.
So you were a PK basically.
Yeah, yeah. My one of my uncles actually lived next door, and so we have like a walk through gate from our property to their property growing up, and so I was over there all the time. It was Pastor Brad or Uncle Brad, either way, but he was the man to go to, and he has stories. Oh my goodness, yeah.
Growing up in a household like that, do you feel like it was very strict or like what was it like growing up? Like were you able to go out?
So, yes and no. I lived a very sheltered childhood, in my opinion. So, from third to ninth grade, I was actually homeschooled. And then I went into public school in ninth grade, which is a culture shock when you've not been in public school, even in a small school, because we went to a small school. So, it wasn't like I didn't like go to somewhere like Rockwall where there's thousands of kids, but it was still culture shock to me. Um, so I definitely grew up in like a sheltered home and my mom didn't let me spend the night anywhere. Like I could spend the night next door at my aunt's house. But other than that, like I wasn't allowed to like go to sleepovers unless my cousin went because then she knew like her mom's not going to let her just stay anywhere. So if she was going, I'd be like, okay, well, Jenny's going. And she'd be like, okay, that's fine. But otherwise I didn't go to sleepovers. So my son thinks it's weird that I say no sleepovers. And I'm like, that's how I grew up. There's a reason.
Yeah, yeah. And you don't know what people do inside their own homes,
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they might live a certain way outside, but
Right.
inside it's like you don't know what's going on. So
Yeah.
I mean, and plus you're the parent, so it's good to be
Yeah.
protective like that. So
Oh, yeah.
going to school, like how was that experience? Like I'm sure like
Oh,
just going into the ninth grade, like were you listening to all the popular music and all that stuff at that time or like
no, I didn't know. Like, I had Christian music in my house. Like, there was Christian rap, there was that, but it wasn't like, the hip hop and the R&B and all that. I actually had a couple friends that I ended up making over the years, and they would make me, burning discs back in the day. So
LimeWire?
yes, yes, we did
Ooh,
that. So I was able to listen to stuff that all the other kids were listening to. But it It was really hard because it was a school in like a small town. And so everyone kind of started in kindergarten and went up to high school. So they all knew each other. I wouldn't necessarily say there were cliques, but they weren't welcoming of outsiders, most of them. So my first 2 weeks of high school, I ate lunch in the bathroom.
Wow.
Yeah, it was rough. I was going to try out for basketball, and some of the senior girls didn't like me because a senior guy asked me to sit at the senior table. I don't know why there's senior tables, but there is. And so they were, I guess, jealous because even though they were seniors, so they were sitting there too. But whatever. They didn't like it that I got invited. And so they actually were like bullying me, and the coach didn't do anything about it. So at that age, like, I hadn't been through things like that before. So I just quit. And I went into PE, and I actually made friends in PE, and they ended up being friends all through high school and into young adulthood. So
Did you carry your faith with you when you were going to school, or how did that work out for you?
yeah, I did. I think it got harder as I got older, maybe like in 12th grade years, just because not everyone was as vocal about it as I was. And I was already struggling to fit in anyways. So it kind of made it hard when I'm over here talking about how I'm a Christian and all my family's, pastor background and all of that. It just kind of made it more difficult for me. So I kind of toned it down a little bit. But we actually had like this, I don't know, thing that we would do. And every Wednesday, a lot of the kids from the school would come home with us. We have a movie theater in the house and a basketball court. And so they would hang out after school and have a good time. And then we would all ride. My mom would give us all a ride, or my aunt, to church. And we would go to youth service. And so that kind of opened the doors to, like the Christian world with some of the kids that I went to school with, who maybe they didn't talk about it at school, but they would be able to still go to church and, get away from the town where they lived. So
I
it
did.
was a lot of
I didn't.
fun.
I didn't ask you, but like, what denomination did you guys grow up?
Uh, right. We're non-denominational growing up. Yeah.
I think it's hard too as a youth trying to serve the Lord. It's really challenging. Culture, so
Mm-hmm.
many influences. You're trying to fit in. You're trying to figure out everything. You're becoming more aware of yourself too at that age. I think, like with how I
Yeah.
dress and boyfriends and all that stuff. So that's pretty cool. So, did you ever do any witnessing or anything when you're in school?
Other than like inviting friends to like come on Wednesday night with us, I didn't really do a whole lot in school. I actually got in quite a bit of trouble. I wouldn't say like with the school, like I never got suspended or anything like that, but I got in trouble as in like I was trying to fit in and not with the best reasons, I guess. And so my mom actually ended up pulling me, let's see, my 10th grade year, I did not go to school there again. She put me in a Christian school. So I kind of let the peer pressure affect how I behaved. And I think too, being homeschooled for so long and then going into a public school like that probably was just kind of a shelter shock. And that affected me and my decisions I made.
We all have like a past. Was there like a moment where in that time period where you walked away from the Lord?
Yeah, I definitely did. I think that happens in a lot of, especially the young crowd when they're younger. I think that's pretty common, but I did. I just felt like maybe that's too good for me, I guess, was the way that I felt it was, because everyone else was doing all these things and I was missing out, like, well, if I'm Christian, I'm not supposed to do these things. And so therefore I'm not getting to experience life like everyone else. And if everyone else is doing it, then what's wrong with it? That was kind of my thought process behind it.
Yeah. I think I did that too. I
Yeah.
didn't grow up in a PK house, but I grew up in church. And I think I got to that age, they call it the rebellious age, like
Yes.
16, 17. I want to do my own thing. And a lot of times we dig ourselves into these holes where we can't get out, and I think a lot of times that's where, I want to say, yeah, the devil sneaks in and plants a seed of whether it's drugs, sex, whatever it might be, that
Right.
gets us off course. So tell me about after high school. What happened after high school for you?
So my mom had a rule that as long as I'm living here, I would have to attend college. Um, I don't know what it was, but I wasn't a fan of school growing up. I did not enjoy it. I had to go, so I was there. And I would make grades in order to pass. That was kind of my, as long as I pass, that's all that matters to me. Let me just get out of here. So I graduated, I homeschooled myself my uh, senior year, and I technically graduated 3 days before I started college.
You homeschooled yourself your senior year?
Yes.
How did that work?
Yes. I only had 3 classes left to graduate. She said I could either go back to the private school or I could homeschool myself. And I was like, I'm not going to the private school because one, I wasn't a fan. Two, there was this huge project that you had to do, and you had to do the project in front of, I say your entire class. There was only 4 of us that would have been graduating that year. So it wasn't a big class, but all their family and anyone else who comes. And I am even though you probably wouldn't know it seeing me out and about, I have stage fright. So I was like, I'm not doing that, but it's a requirement to graduate there. So I decided I would homeschool myself. So 3 days before I was supposed to start college, I finally graduated. I mean, to the wire, the end. Um, but I went, um, and I think my first semester, I was fine. I did pretty good. Didn't have any issues with my classes because there wasn't any exciting classes, I guess. I just was like, okay, I have to do this. Then the following semester, I stopped going to class and I started flunking. I didn't care to show up or do the work or anything. I was seeing a guy. He was not a good influence on me at all. I ended up, I didn't even tell my parents. I just dropped out of school. And then one night I just didn't come home. And that was the start of my really rough young adult life. That decision, I think, really impacted the whole early 20s for me. And I was only 18 at the time. I had not even
So,
turned 19.
so it was a relationship that started it, you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting, how people can just come into your life
Yeah.
and take you off your path. Yeah. Was that your first serious relationship, or did you have something like that, or any
Um,
relationships in high school or anything?
Yeah, I actually dated the same guy in high school for 2 years. We were dating when we were 14, which I know sounds absurd. My son's a year from that, and I'm like, a girlfriend? There's no way.
Yeah.
But
For 2 years.
yeah, for 2 years straight,
Wow.
we were, and he actually went to my church. His family went to my church. His brothers went to my church. He was a great guy, still is, but we were kind of forced not to date anymore. We had a conversation about we were wanting to have sex. We never did. We never did anything. We were I guess, being smart about it and discussing, if we do this, this is how it needs to be, protection. And are you okay with it? Is this going to affect your beliefs and whatever? So we were smart about it, but our parents found out. And so we were not allowed to date anymore. And I think that really affected me because I was told I couldn't be with somebody that I really wanted to be with, which just down into everything after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Did
But
it like, go ahead.
I would say he was like my first serious boyfriend, even though we were 14. I mean, we dated for 2 years. So, but then after that, I had one boyfriend in college that I don't know how long we dated, but it wasn't very long. I met him there in class one time and he cheated on me. So that ended the relationship. And so this other guy, he was much older than me. I think that's why things went the way they did. He was just like, well, your mom's telling you can't do this. Just don't listen. You're 18. So it was like, technically the devil in my ear, that kind of led me astray.
And the guy in college, that was 2 years, you said? Or was that the guy in high school?
The guy in high school was 2 years.
The guy in high school?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I look back and I reflect on some of my bad relationships, and they definitely will
Yeah.
take you off your path. And especially at that age, you were 18, 19, kind
Yeah.
of like want to do your own thing, like,
Yeah.
And what did you go to school for?
So originally I was just getting like my core classes out of the way. Um, when I went back to college, I was listening to like what everyone was telling me. I'm really great with kids. I love kids. So my aunt kept saying like, "Oh, you should be a school teacher." Several of my aunts. I shouldn't say one aunt. It was multiples. Yeah. And so I started going to school to be a school teacher. And in that first like I would say like month and a half, 2 months of taking classes, I was like, this isn't what I want to do. And so I wasted my first semester when I decided to go back to school because it was too late to like switch classes or switch majors or anything like that. But I ended up going to school for pre-law and still finishing out my bachelor's degrees, but in the same aspect, it's paralegal studies and criminal justice. So
Very nice.
big difference from being
Yeah.
a school teacher.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I know we talked about it. That's something you're trying to pursue now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have one class and one internship left, and I will be getting my double bachelor's degrees, and then I'm gonna start law school.
That's badass.
I know, right? I'm so
And
excited.
that's 4 years, right?
It's 3, but that's I think full time, and like I think if you like really go in on it and being a single mom, I'll probably have to stretch it to 4.
Are you going to be a criminal attorney or
Um,
civil?
I actually am thinking family law.
Family law?
Yeah, it's something that I'm really passionate about. So I think I haven't officially decided on which one, but I think that's the one I'm going to go for.
Why are you passionate about the family law? Is there a reason?
Yes, there is a reason. So when I was 22, I think, I got married, and that's my oldest son's dad. He had a little girl before us, and when we started dating, he hadn't seen her in a long time. And I was like, why is that? Like thinking, are you the reason? Like, is it that you don't want to see your daughter? And his real term, baby mama, she just was like, no, you're not coming around because you're not giving me child support. Well, I did all this research and I realized that that wasn't the way to go about it. I was like, she can't hold visitation against you just because you're not paying child support because it's two separate things. So I started doing like a lot of digging and a lot of, like what can we do to fix this situation so that she can come around? Because again, passion for kids. And so that's where like my passion started was with her and that situation. And then since then, I think just knowing things like I have my youngest sister, she went through a divorce and she was trying to make sure that the dad wasn't around a lot just because of the kind of person that he is. And so I was able to like, educate myself in those areas so that I could help her when she got her divorce and going through custody and whatnot. So I just become passionate about it because of girls close to my life.
So legally, you can't do that, right?
Right. Right.
I've heard a lot of stories of this kind of situation where they'll keep the parent away for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes, it
so
is.
I think that's pretty admirable that you're going to school for that.
Yeah.
I think you'll be pretty good. Like, you already show dedication, like you're willing to do your own research
Yes.
and, figure out how to fix it. So I think that's really good. So did you guys find like a solution to that situation eventually,
Yeah.
or?
Yeah. So there was a document that I found out, like a letter that we had to have dropped off to her and have her also sign for it. So then we sent it two different ways. Whether she got the first one or not, we wouldn't know. But the one that she had to sign for, we get the little card back. And so we know she got the letter. So we had proof. So we did that. And it basically in the letter just says, like, hey, I'm exercising my rights to visitation with my child, and I will be there on this day at this time. Please have her things ready or whatever. And when we started doing that, she kind of freaked out and ended up going and hiring an attorney herself and having it where he couldn't come pick her up because she did a uh what is it called?
Not a
Like
restraining
a
order, but
right, kind of like a restraining order.
really?
Yeah. Oh, a protective order. She did a protective order, which to me just seems absurd. Like, what reason did you give the attorney? Because you have to have a reason. And there would like, oh, he's exercising his rights to see his kid. That's not a good enough reason. So I'm not sure what she's told them, but because of that, he could no longer attempt to go pick her up until they went to court. And when they went to court, then they were able to come to an agreement based on the judge. I don't think it was the mom that was necessarily agreeing. And so then he was slowly being able to like be a part of her life. It had to be with her there for a little while. Like they'd go meet at McDonald's and sit there for an hour, or go to her grandparents or whatever and sit there for an hour until it was, I think, like 3 weeks or something of that. And as long as he was consistently doing it, then it changed to where he started getting his first, third, and fifth weekend. So it was baby steps, and it was not a fun process, but he finally was able to see her. We accomplished what we were trying to accomplish in the first place.
Do you think that sometimes the legal system's fair?
No, not at all.
Because that sounds like a little bit extra.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
like,
feel like people find loopholes,
hmm
and it's really sad.
yeah. Well, and then a lot of people, they're not educated on what their rights are in, regards to whatever is going on. Like he had no idea that because you're not paying child support, that has nothing to do with visitation. He didn't know. And so it's just like there's so many areas in the justice system that aren't right because they don't put the information out there. Like, easily, I guess, Google, but still, not everyone knows this stuff. And I don't think that's right to them. So,
and then some attorneys, it's like you do the work for them.
well,
They
yes.
don't they don't they don't they don't go out their way to like get all the facts and documents that you need. It's like you have to bring it to them. Like, hey, this is what I have, X, Y, and Z.
hmm
I don't know. It's crazy.
When I got my divorce, I actually took 3 binders with me.
Jesus.
And it was all like organized. Like, this first section is, court orders, or this first section is this. And so everything was organized. There was pictures of text messages or, pictures that he had posted on his Facebook or whatever. So there was all kinds of information already ready for her, and it was all organized. And she was like, I have never had a client come in with stuff like this. And I was like, well, I'm serious about this. And my child, on top of that, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm passionate about. And she's like, wow, okay. Thank you. And so she starts flipping through, and she knew exactly where to go because it was organized.
Wow.
Not everyone's like
I've
that, but
I've never heard of that.
I was.
And then I think that's why you're going to be a good attorney.
Yeah.
So like do a little pitch for me. If I came into your office, I'm Trey, I'm having some issues, I want to see my kids, why would I hire you, basically?
Okay. So you want to see your kids, When has she let you see him the last time?
Haven't seen him in 4 years.
4 years. Okay.
And she moved out of state.
Gosh. Why did it take you 4 years to hire an attorney?
Money. Work.
Okay. I get that.
Mhm.
I get that. All right. All right. So if she lives out of state, have y'all communicated about getting to see your kids?
Just through email.
Through email? Okay.
Mhm.
Do you have proof of those emails still? Okay, perfect. We're going to need those printed. We're going to need all her information, her address, her phone number, all that, so that we can get her served as quick as possible so that we can get you to seeing your kids as soon as you can. So that would be the gist of it, you know?
Yeah, that's pretty spot on.
Yeah. I mean, there's no
Probably
reason to like take a whole lot of time. Like, you want to see your kids, that's fantastic. Let's do it, you know? So,
very nice.
yeah.
That's awesome. I think you do. I can see it in you.
Yeah.
I can
It's
see
my
it in you.
passion. I think that's why, like, being that I love kids and then being that I'm passionate in this area for several reasons, you know, with things I've been through and whatnot, I think that's why family law is like my number one go-to. I think after that, it would be probably criminal because there's still people that deal with that too, you know, like they're not guilty, but they're forced to accept pleas just so that they don't have to potentially go to prison for something that they didn't commit. You know, things like that. Like, I feel for them. That is awful and they shouldn't have to deal with that. But our justice system is messed up. So,
A really big eye opener for me. I watched this documentary maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It's called At the Prison Door,
mhm.
and it talks about death row, Huntsville,
Oh
Texas,
gosh, yes.
which is like they murdered, well, not murdered, but they put to death a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this one case where the evidence showed that this guy was innocent, but they executed him still.
Oh,
And then years later, the guy that actually committed the crime admitted to it, and his DNA evidence was there. So it's like, where's the justice for that?
yeah. This
You
other
know,
man spent his life, however long, even if it's 5 years, that's 5 years of your life in prison for something he didn't commit. And then he was put to death for it. That's crazy.
wrong place, wrong time. He was the
Hmm.
first person they saw. You must have did it.
Right.
And so, and then you have people that recount their statements,
Hmm.
the witnesses and stuff like that. So yeah, the prison system in America is, I'm not very proud of it.
Yes, I agree. I feel the same way. It's very unfortunate for our people.
And, and we could talk about it like legally, it's a form of slavery. I mean,
Hmm.
I think it's the 13th or the 14th Amendment that talks about your rights being gone and you're basically a slave to the state. So that's a place I never want to go.
No, definitely not. It would not be fun at all. And some people commit smaller crimes. I say smaller, but it's not murder, things like
Like
that.
weed.
Yeah. And they're in prison with the same people that are out there being serial killers. And so they're, yes, they committed a crime and maybe there should be consequences for the crime. However, putting them in a place like that with people like that, unfortunately, is not, in my opinion, the best decision because now you put their life in danger because they were selling weed, you know? So,
You put
and
him in
you're,
an environment with sharks. I
yes.
mean, so if he wasn't a monster when he came in, he's about to leave as one for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And you're forced in the prison system, you're forced into things like joining gangs in order to survive. Like, so you might have gone in as like somebody who just, oh, I was struggling. And so I thought, let me just sell this weed real quick. And that way I can get out of this situation I'm in. Now I'm being forced into a gang. And that's nothing about, like my character, but I'm forced into it in order to survive in here. So then when they get out, they still have to stay in the gang, like they don't just let
Yeah.
you as a gang
Oh,
member
yeah.
out. So it
Blood
ruins
in,
their
blood
life.
out. Blood in, blood out.
So It's
Well,
terrible.
what is rehabilitation? I mean, like, you don't just throw somebody in a cell. There has to be like a shift in the mindset.
Yeah.
And I don't think our prison system does a good job of rehabilitating. They might do that in some areas, but I think it's more than just putting somebody on medication. Like, you got to
Hmm.
teach them how to change their thinking, because your mind can be molded, you know, it's not
Yeah.
just set a certain way.
So, funny you mentioned rehabilitation. So I studied abroad in Belize. Their justice system compared to ours. It was probably the most exciting trip. Maybe it's just because it was something I was super passionate about, but it was one of the most exciting trips I've ever been on. And we actually visited their prison in Belize. They only have one for the entire place.
Whoa.
Um, yeah, crazy. And get this. Okay, so there was a group of us. I want to say there was like 20 of us, 18, 20 of us. Um, we are in normal street clothes. They didn't have us change or anything. Obviously, we couldn't wear like, shorts because we're females and there's going to be men in there that haven't seen that. But still, like, we're in street clothes and we are literally walking around inside the prison where all these men are walking around, not chained. There's guards, but they're just like walking around with us, like everyday life. It was the weirdest thing, but they their thing is to rehabilitate. Like, we want, when they leave here, them to have a skill, them to have a place to go and it not be, re-offend and come back. Like, that's their whole goal. And they do really good at it. Like, I don't I don't know what their rates are, statistically, but they're really succeeding in that area. Um, Go ahead.
What are they doing? Like,
So they have so one section, there's just like a fence separating them, is minors. They are out there cutting the grass with machetes, which seems very crazy to give them, but they're offenders and they have machetes. That was weird to me to cut the grass. But they're out there cutting the grass and they have to do that, like, I don't know, I think once a week, I think it was, but they're out there cutting the grass in the hot air. It doesn't matter. They have to be out there. They have church. Obviously, we have church in our prisons. They have school. I visited their law library. Their law library was actually really awesome considering it was a prison. And then I'm not sure that the minors did all of these things, but they have a farm there. So they take care of pigs, they take care of chickens, they take care of goats, whether it be milking, raising them, slaughtering them, turning it into their own food. That's what they were doing with all of the food or animals. And then they were planting crops. So they were learning farming. They had a woodworking shop. They were learning how to make all kinds of things. Actually, I bought my son, he was very into sharks when he was little. So he has a shark that was literally made from one of the prisoners in
wow.
Belize prison. I had earrings that I had bought that were made from one of them. They had this huge door and it was like carved really, really pretty, like flowers and stuff all carved in the wood. So they are learning wood making or woodworking skills, all kinds of stuff. And then when they get out, they already have jobs set up for them. They already have a place set up for them. So I'm like, they're doing it. Why aren't we doing it?
And then they're not in prison for 20 years, right? Unless
Right.
they
Yeah.
did something
No.
heinous.
Yeah. They don't do like prison for the rest of your life and put to death type stuff over there. Like, if you do a crime that's that bad and you have recommitted, they're not going to keep you there. They're going to send you to another island because that's not what they're there for. So
So
it was
they
interesting.
they go to prison and then they start fresh again, because our prison system, if you leave and you have a felony or something, you can't vote anymore.
Right.
You trying to find a job, you can't find a job, an apartment.
Housing. Yeah. You can't
Yeah,
find a
you're
place to live. Like, it's awful. Yeah. It sounds like the way that they do their system, unless you don't believe the way that we do, obviously, you might be like, well, they're just starting fresh. Like, how is that fair? They've committed this crime. They still know that they've committed the crime. Like, it's still in the system, but they're not going to struggle as far as like housing or jobs because they've committed a crime. They're looked at as you have been rehabilitated. You are going back into society and now you're going to be useful to our society. So they give them another opportunity. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I'm not here to like bash on America with this episode, but I do notice how
yeah,
it's kind of like a monopoly. I think it's all about money. And then
I
you have a lot
agree.
of private prisons, and so the people
Hmm.
are making money that way.
Right.
So,
Or they're not taking care of their people in the prison, and that affects those people if and when they get out. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, if you're being starved and, not kept in a clean cell when you get out, are you going to not just kind of lose it when you're out there? I mean, and you're going to lose it when you're inside too. I mean, riots, they happen for a reason. That a lot of times has something to do with it. So,
absolutely. Let's circle back a little bit to where you were in college. You said you kind of fell off there. What was some of the things you were doing, or what were your experiences during that time? And were you following God?
right. So I was still a believer. I mean, I never stopped believing that God is God and, what he did and what Jesus did on the cross and everything. However, I just kind of let the world lead me. I was having sex before marriage. I was using drugs. My first husband, that was a big thing. When I met him, he was high. I had never, at that time, the only thing I had done was smoke weed before. So I didn't know about stuff because, again, I was sheltered. I didn't know all these things. But when he told me about ecstasy, he was telling me the things that it made him feel, or, I experienced this on it. I wanted to know what that was like. Plus, I was into him. And so it was kind of like, oh, well, if this is what he's into, in order for me to be able to kind of have that relationship with him, I kind of got to start doing these things. That's what I thought. So, drugs, alcohol, drinking all the time. I mean, I met him at a party. So that just tells you. So I definitely went down a path of destruction, I would say, which kind of hindered my life. It hindered relationships I had with family members. And uh, I wouldn't say it hindered relationships with friends because I got all these new friends from partying.
Yeah.
So they weren't necessarily good friends. So it definitely took me down a path away from God for sure.
We all have those too.
Yeah.
And I think the good thing is that you're able to reflect on those
Oh, yeah.
moments and learn from them. We all heard the definition of insanity: keep doing the same thing over again, expecting a different result.
Yeah,
And
because that
so,
works.
no, yeah, exactly. And during that time, what was like your moment where you kind of opened your eyes? I know you talked about you guys getting a divorce. Like, what was your moment that said, you know what, the way I've been doing it isn't working? Did you have a moment like that?
Yes. So I actually had, I would say, two moments. The thing that got me off of the ecstasy, because that was the only drug that I was doing at the time. The thing that got me off of that was I actually OD'd and almost died in his arms. And that was like huge eye opener. This is before I had kids. This is in that transition of him starting to get his daughter coming around and everything. But I almost died in his arms, and that was like the end of it. I never touched it again after that. I was like, okay, I'm done.
So you
Um,
went to the hospital and everything.
Yes, I went to the hospital. They had to, he actually carried me to the car, his sister's car. His sister drove. He had to repeatedly tell me that I needed to continue trying to breathe. Like, I just kept saying it was too hard to breathe and I couldn't. And he kept trying to remind me and like, keep your eyes open, like keeping me conscious. They met the ambulance, because we lived in the country. So they met the ambulance at a nearby bar, and then the ambulance drove us to the hospital. When they did all the blood work and all that, they said that there was no ecstasy in my system. It was straight meth. So I had OD'd on meth tabs.
And meth is like a upper, right?
Yeah.
Or was it
Yeah.
mixed? Was it mixed with something or?
All they said was that I had straight meth in my system. So I have no idea what else it was. And crazy enough, I had built such a high tolerance that day I had 5 triple stacks, which is basically 3 pills smashed into one. So I was on so many pills that day. And it was just the morning. Like that was starting off our
Wow.
day. He tried putting me in a cold shower and that didn't do anything. And he realized like, okay, like this is serious. This isn't like just a little, she, got too high too fast. Like I was dying, but I never touched it again after that. He still had his party days and stuff due to trauma. I don't, have any issues with how he dealt with things that he was going through. But for me personally, that was like, okay, I never want to deal with this again. I never want to experience this again. Thankfully, because not everyone takes you to the hospital. Some people just kind of like freak out and they just leave you and then you die. Thankfully, he did not do that. So I thank God that he didn't do that to me. But I think that was an eye opener for me for sure. Then I think my son was 3 months old. I actually met a girl. This is a couple years later. I met a girl in college that she was older than me and we just really clicked. And one day she invited me to church and I was like, girl, I haven't been to church in a long time. And she's like, well, I think you would really like this church. Like this church is, it's a lot smaller than what I was used to. She said it's like going to hang out with your family. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like, well, I'll try it. I was trying to be nice. I was hanging out with her and her family and stuff. And so I went and they became my church from that day on for the last almost 13 years now.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I don't know what God did that day in church, but whatever it was, that just really like grabbed me and he held on and was like, you're not going back to the stuff you were doing before. Like you need to be on this path. And I'm so thankful for it. Who knows where my life would have been?
Or if you kept taking the pills, like
Yeah. Yeah.
some people don't, I feel like we all have those crossroads
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. And based on whether we go left or right can determine a lot of things. And thankfully, you chose to do the right thing with that.
Right. Yeah. Cause
And
I mean, I know people that they didn't make that decision and they had OD, experiences multiple times and then they're not here anymore. So I didn't have that. The one and done, I was over it. I never want to deal with that again.
I know you talked about being a single mom. How is that for you? Just before you go,
Yeah.
I grew up and my mom was a single mom. So it's very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a lot of her struggles and the things that she had to do to make things work for us. And so
Right.
I just want to get your perspective on being a single mom and how that's been for you.
Yeah. I love being a mom. Like it is my pride and joy is taking care of these boys. But it is hard. It is hard. There are days that I have that are great. And I feel at the end of the day, when I lay my head down on my pillow, hey, we had a great day. I was a great mom today. I got to see my kids smile a whole lot today. We had fun, all of that. And then there are other days where I lay down and I just really beat myself up because I feel like, I snapped today, a few times. I lost it. I struggled with dealing with the things I needed to deal with and really focusing when maybe my 12-year-old is coming up to me trying to show me something cool he did on his game. And in reality, I'm over here like, well, I don't care. I'm trying to, do the dishes.
Yeah.
And that's not fair to him. But I
Mm.
also need to give myself grace and understand that I am human and those moments are going to happen. And just because they happen doesn't make me not a good mom, or, if a dad does the same thing as a single dad, it doesn't make him a bad dad. Like, we're human. It happens. But I just really, it's just not easy. There are days when you just are like, man, it would be nice to have somebody by your side so that it's not just you. It's definitely easier as a two-parent household.
And then I think too, when it gets hard, it can be tempting to just accept anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we really have to be cautious and have boundaries, because people, if you let them in, they'll come in and
Mm-hmm.
destroy your life.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
I think that's pretty awesome of you that you are doing everything that you can for your kids. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, I don't know what it feels like to be a single mom, but I'm sure someone that's listening to this, you can speak to them and help them. Do you have any words you would like to say to them? Any single
Actually,
mothers?
yes. So I go to therapy regularly, weekly. I think that it's fantastic for anyone to go to therapy, but I mentioned it to my therapist. I just feel like, I'm not doing what I need to do for my kids. And, am I doing them harm more than good, as in, like their future? Like, my goal is to build wonderful men one day, men that are going to treat their girlfriends and wives with respect. And she said, you know what, Kristi? The fact that you constantly say, like, am I doing a good job? Am I being a good mom? Am I giving enough? She said, that right there, like, bad moms don't ask that. They don't care. She's like, you care a lot. She's like, that right there says you're a good mom. So just to moms out there that, maybe they're questioning whether or not they're doing a good job. Girl, you're doing a fantastic job because you're over here questioning whether or not you're doing a good job. Bad moms don't do that. They could care less. If my kid's out running around in the streets, I don't care. You know, if you're doing a good job and you're asking those questions, you're doing fantastic. Some days are harder than others, but you're doing a good
So what
job.
so what do you do to keep you going each
Um,
day? Because I know it gets hard,
oh yeah.
and some days are easier than others. So what are some of the things you do to help?
One thing is I try, obviously there are days when I'll be like, did I do that today? No, I didn't. But I try to take care of myself, as in take my vitamins every day. I like to drink my greens in the morning, and it gives you like a little boost of energy. That I feel like if I just take like a moment and do something like take my vitamins and drink my greens, it kind of puts me in a different mindset than if I just like start going, get up and just start taking care of the kids. Like, give me a second. Let me do these things for myself, because as moms, we don't always take care of ourselves. We take care of everyone else. And then we're like, oh yeah, I didn't eat today. We got to do better about that. Another thing I do is I pray. I mean, I could be in the grocery store and just be like, you know what? I'm trying not to lose it because the 12-year-old is over here. The other day, he saw something on the counter and he just, oh, hey, shots, and like sprung it back and it flew off the cabinet and it just broke everywhere in the grocery store. Thankfully, this little old lady, she just like started laughing and she said, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but I probably would have done it too. And I was like, she's cool. I like her.
Yeah, yeah.
But, just taking moments of like when your kids are just driving you crazy and just be like, all right, God, help me have some patience. Help me see the joy in these moments that maybe it's driving you crazy and you're trying to get out the grocery store, but he's having fun and there's a smile on his face. let me entertain that. Let me goof around with him. So just really praying in the moment and praying even at night, when you're laying your head down. And so lots of prayer.
I
Lord
think I
knows
do
I need
too.
it.
We all do. One thing I do too for me is I make sure I get good sleep. If I'm running on E, I'm done. I can't help anybody. I'm useless. Sleep and then also journaling for me. I
Mm,
usually do it twice a day. In the morning, because it sets a tone for my day.
right.
What are my goals? What do I want to do? How do I feel? And then at night, I put down, well, how was the day? And I
Mm-hmm.
think when you're actually able to do that, your mind's not wandering at 12 at night trying to figure out the universe. So I
Right.
do those things, and obviously eating healthy and hydrating. So
Yes.
some of those are the things that I do that work for
Right.
me.
Yeah, hydrating is huge. I'm still nursing, so I have to hydrate daily. That's a big thing for me. And then I would say I haven't been doing it a whole lot lately. Things have just been, crazy. But my therapist said, find a hobby. I really enjoy painting. Um,
Interesting.
yeah. So whether I'm good at it or not, that is not the point. Just getting like that calming moment to yourself of just, the paint on the brush hitting the canvas. Or I enjoy painting walls. So my dad has hired me and I will just go in and listen to music and I will just be painting walls and like not a care in the world. People could be tearing down walls around me and I'd just be like, la 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 la, it doesn't bother me at all. Or coloring. I think it kind of does the same thing for me. So she was like, you need to do that once a day, at least. If you can get an hour, do that for yourself. So I need to really start doing that more, because it just calms you and tells your mind like, all right, you're good. Let's just be at ease. So yeah.
For me, working out, for whatever reason, that's just my thing.
Yeah.
Um, Photography and like being out in nature. Those are my thing.
Yeah. I think nature should be like everyone because
Yeah,
it's it's so good for you, like for your
it's
mental
natural.
health and everything. Yeah. Like I feel like it should be mandatory that everyone just goes outside and just enjoys some nature once a day, at least.
Have you noticed this weather in Texas? Like it was snowing 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Now it's like 80 degrees outside.
Yeah. I know. I was like, okay, so wait, do I wear shorts or pants or jacket or no? Like I don't know what to wear.
Do you think the winter is over?
Texas is bipolar. It doesn't know what it is anymore. I wish that it would make up its mind so that I knew what clothes to put in my closet.
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't know. I think that, let's see, we're beginning of February. No, I think it's
Mm.
gonna come back. We're gonna have some more winter weather, unfortunately, because I am. Let me
So
have
what
some
is
sun.
this?
I don't
What is
know.
this?
It's tricking us.
Stupid.
It's
Is it
it's getting
global
us
warming?
exciting. I don't know. I don't know. It might be. It just gets
I
us
know.
all excited and then it's like, haha, watch this, and then we're gonna have snow. I hope not, but I bet
Yeah,
we do.
I don't need to know. Oh, you think we're gonna have snow again?
We might.
That's wild.
Yeah. If I predict it, I'm gonna have to go buy a lottery ticket or something.
Yeah, yeah. You got a gift.
Right?
Well, it's been recorded here first, so
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Everyone
you're good.
knows.
Yeah, you're good. So talk about your kids a little bit.
Yeah. So I have two boys. They are, oh my goodness, they are such different personalities. It's crazy. So my oldest is almost 13. He'll be 13 in April. Which is fantastic, but also scary. Because almost time to drive. Um, but he is, man, he is a ball of energy. He is super funny, super outgoing. He has a smart mouth. Literally, he is me in a boy's body. It is
Wow.
crazy. Like when I want to get on to him, but he did something that I know I would have done, I'm like, how do I Like, how do I deal with you? Like, because you just did what I would have done. And he's taller than me already at 13, almost
How tall are
13.
you?
I'm 5'8",
Wow.
and he's already taller
Oh, he's
than
gonna
me.
be tall. Yeah, he's gonna be
Yeah,
tall.
he's taller than me. I used to give him, like, when I was just like done with shirts, any like t-shirts, like that are boy, it could be a boy or a girl shirt. I would give those to him. I can't do that anymore. He can't wear them. And then shoes, he used to go borrow my shoes. He can't do that anymore. His feet are too big. So I'm like, okay, are we got a basketball player? Like, what's going on? Um, but he is fantastic. Just he has a incredible heart. He is a mama's boy, even though he gets on my nerves a lot. The other day, we were eating at Cane's, and I was inside letting the baby finish eating and stuff, and he wanted to ride his scooter around. So he's riding his scooter around outside, and he comes back in. He has not done this since he was like, I think like 7, 8, maybe a little older, but it's been a while. It's been a while. He came in and had picked some flowers for me that he saw outside.
That
And
was really quick.
I was like, okay, I'm not going to cry. We're in public. Don't cry. And I was like,
Wow.
thank you. And he's like, well, I saw them and I thought of you because they're really pretty. And I know you like whenever I pick you flowers. And I was like, okay, I did something right. I don't know what I did right, but I did something. So he has his moments when he can be super sweet and everything. And then his other moments, he's like, Mom, you're embarrassing me. Please stop. That's my job. But then the youngest is 10 months. He is walking a lot. Like yesterday, I let him play outside. He loves playing outside. So he had on a pair of tennis shoes. The first time he's actually walked around in tennis shoes, and he was outside like stepping on acorns and sticks and stuff. So I was like, he's going to fall a lot. He's probably going to hate him because it's a different weight with shoes on. When I tell you that boy all day long wore his tennis shoes and walked around everywhere. He did so good. I was so proud. Um, he he's learning so much. He's already trying, like, if he sees me put like shape pieces into a bucket, into where you match the shape, he's already trying to mimic that. He's seen me put like these rings on this cylinder thing, and he's already trying to mimic that. I mean, he's just so smart. He'll be 1 in March, and I don't know how I'm going to handle the fact that he's growing up so fast. Like, I feel like just yesterday I had him, but it was 10 months ago.
And
So,
with your pregnancies and stuff, was all your pregnancies good and stuff like that?
so I struggled actually with the oldest. I didn't get pregnant right away. I actually had to take Clomid, I think is what it's called. It was supposed to like induce a period, and then we were going to try birth control, and we were going to do it for so long and then skip pills, and then magically I would be pregnant. But never had to do the birth control because I ended up getting pregnant due to the pill. So that worked out wonderfully. But then for 12 years, nothing happened. So I went to an infertility doctor, and they had diagnosed me, I want to say I was like 26, maybe 25. They finally had said that I had PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which there's a whole list of things that come with that. A lot of women deal with being overweight. Um, we crave sugar a lot, which is strange to me, but it comes
From
with it.
from the PCOS?
Yeah, yeah. We
Okay.
like crave sugar for some reason. We don't have regular periods. We struggle with getting pregnant, or we can have like pregnancies that like don't last, where we miscarry if we do get pregnant. So PCOS has been something that like I've researched for years because I knew that I had it. But I went to an infertility doctor, and I said, I have PCOS, but I know women get pregnant still on, having PCOS. So what can we do? So they actually did a dye test where they shoot dye into your uterus and then see, does it go where it needs to go? Mine did not. and he said that both of my tubes were blocked. So I only had two options. I could have surgery, which could help, could not, or I could die from having the surgery. So that was out of the question. Or I could do IVF, which is in vitro fertilization, where they pull the egg, they pull the sperm, they put them together and create the embryo before placing the embryo inside of your uterus. So I did a lot of praying about it. It wasn't a big decision for me in the sense of surgery versus IVF, because surgery could potentially make things worse. But it was, if I'm supposed to have more children, what do I do? What path are you wanting me to go down? And the doctor's office had called and said that the insurance was going to cover IVF at 100%. So that right there was like, okay, let's get started. 3 days before I was supposed to have my eggs retrieved, this is after doing injections, putting my body through all of this medication and whatnot to prep my eggs for retrieval. 3 days beforehand, they called and asked for $10,000. And I was like, I don't have it. I was crying, bawling, talking to the lady and telling her, I've wanted kids for 10 years now. And 3 days before, you're going to be like, oops, we made a mistake. They're not paying for it. Called my husband and was like, what do I do? And he's trying to figure out, what can we do? He actually had a friend in basic training that was willing, if his wife was okay with it, to loan us. They said if we give them $3,000, they'll do the egg retrieval and then we can make some payments. So he was trying to talk his wife into it. She had never met me. Why would she loan me $3,000? So it just was a whole thing. Ended up that they did the egg retrieval with no money down at all. They wanted me to pay more money, make payments or whatever later. And I ended up talking to the manager. And after a few months, the manager said, this was our mistake. I looked into it. They did. And you actually even called back a second time because you were in such shock and asked them to re-verify that the insurance was going to cover it. And we still said the second time, yes. He said, so we're going to pay for it 100%. You don't have to worry about anything. So IVF that should have cost $14,000 to $16,000, the only thing it cost us was medication. And by the end of 13 eggs coming, and then fertilizing 7 eggs were good enough to fertilize, we had 2 embryos that made it. We implanted the first embryo, and that's not necessarily always takes on the first try. Usually it's several tries down the road, then you get pregnant. My first embryo that we transferred took, and that's the baby that I have now. So God is good.
Baby.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
He is. He is definitely my little miracle.
Yeah. I've heard of PCOS, but I don't think I've came across any women that have it. It's not like they are vocal about it.
Right. We're not announcing it.
So I bet that's a whole unique experience. What else would it affect, I guess? I know you talked about weight loss and your periods.
Right.
Anything dealing with self-image? How did you feel when you found out you had PCOS?
Man, it really, I think one thing that it affected me mentally in the sense that, I had been doing research and I had kept telling my doctor for probably 3 years, hey, I have all the symptoms of PCOS other than the being overweight portion. So I really believe this is what I have. And she's like, no, you don't have PCOS. You don't have that. And then I finally got her to send me to a different doctor. And after doing one little ultrasound, he immediately said, yes, you have PCOS. I don't understand why it took this for you to get confirmation. And I was like, okay, now that I know, what do we do now? I think for me, knew for years before getting that confirmation. So I was already like dealing with the mental weight of, hey, I'm not going to be able to just do what most people do, lay in bed, get pregnant, and have a baby. Like, I'm going to have to put in more work, more effort, more money in order to have that family that I'm wanting. So it was definitely very depressing. It also makes you just kind of go in that mind state of, whatever, I can't get pregnant, so it's fine. And as Christians, it's not necessarily something that, we should be doing, have sex, it's fine because I'm not going to get pregnant. That's not the mindset we should be in. But I think it was more of a like depression situation for me. And that's why I was just kind of like, whatever, it doesn't matter to me because nothing's going to happen. So
did you like go back down the road of like drinking or anything?
I
Because I know
did
people's
for a while.
depression. Okay.
Yeah, I did for a while, which I always tried to be careful, not when I was like real young, but as I got older and I realized
The gateway.
because, yeah, and my dad's side of the family struggles with alcohol abuse. So I realized like, hey, there is some reason here that I should try to be careful. But does that mean that I was always careful? No, because depression just kind of, it's like a snowball effect, like this is how I feel. And as you're going down, you're picking up negative things that just feed that snowball as it's going down the hill till it gets so big that it's knocking everything good out of the way. So it
What's
definitely did.
what's the difference between abuse and addiction?
I think abuse, you're capable of putting it down and saying no. You choose not to. Addiction, you can't put it down and say no.
Yeah, I just thought to ask that because you said your family has the abuse thing. So do they still struggle with that?
So I am proud to say that I have an uncle, actually I have two uncles that struggled with it for since I know when I was a kid that they've struggled, and a cousin who struggled with it, and it has affected every one of their lives, like in ways of jail, prison. It's affected them, and they all three are no longer drinking and have been sober for a
Wow.
long time. So
That's awesome. If I had a round of applause
I
button,
know, I know.
I
I
don't, I
was
don't,
waiting for it and I knew you didn't have one, but I was like, that would be perfect right there.
that's awesome.
Yes. So I'm very proud of them and the fact that they were able to, especially like I never drank with one of my uncles and my cousin, but I did drink with my other uncle who's like closer to my age. I think he's only like 6 years, 5 years older than me. And so I like firsthand saw like us in a bar and like how he would act. And not that he wasn't fun, he was a fun drunk, but it just like, it's nice to see him sober and be like, hey, I remember those days, but I really love seeing my uncle these days. So just that difference, it's incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
He was a fun drunk.
He
I haven't heard that
was.
one.
He was. Like he would buy everyone drinks at the bar and everyone would be like, "Hey, look over there. That's so and so." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's my uncle."
Was
Or,
was he dancing on top of the bar like Coyote Ugly or what?
he didn't. He didn't. But he also had a thing where he'd be like, "Okay, so my dad's side of the family is from Wisconsin." And he grew up in Texas since he was like young, to his like I think 18, 19. Then he moved back to Wisconsin. But we like grew up together when I was younger. So when I came up there to visit before he got sober, he would be like, I don't know, Kristi, can you drink like I can? And I'm like, yes, I can. Of course, I'm trying to be cool and think that I can, outdrink my uncle. I can't. by the way. So he would always be like, all right, well, Texas over here thinks she can outdrink me. And so then he would just be buying shots at the bar, just being fun and outgoing. And so it was fun. He was a fun drunk. But now looking back, I'm like, it wasn't necessarily the best decisions drinking like that, but I enjoy him now.
I think in the history of uncles, I
Yeah.
don't think any of them have ever been out drunk by anybody in
No.
anybody's family. I mean, how you gonna out drink your uncle?
I know. He's like,
So
Texas thinks she can. And I'm like, I can keep up. He's like, okay, let me tell you, he carried me out the bar that night. So I did not keep up.
wow,
He said I didn't
yeah,
want to leave. And I was like, well, I apparently I was having a good time. I don't remember that, but
man, I
yeah.
hadn't been that drunk in years.
Yeah, I was that drunk because my grandmother had passed away. So I was going to that extreme because of that. But plus, I hadn't gotten to hang out with him a long time. So it was nice to visit. But
Yeah, I used to drink to forget things. Obviously, being
mm-hmm.
in 911, some of the stuff I would see.
Yeah.
Um, as I grew older and matured and got into therapy, I found that just dealing with it head on will
Mm-hmm.
make it quicker for me to get over whatever it is I'm dealing with.
Right.
Versus drinking, it's just going to prolong your
Yeah.
feelings. And like, I think you need to have a moment to feel your emotions, and then you're actually able to move on in a healthy way.
Right.
So
Versus
I don't, yeah,
I think drinking, it kind of helps in that moment. But once the alcohol has worn off and you go back to your life, it's still there. Whereas therapy, you kind of deal with the situation and get through it. So I can definitely see I've done
and
it.
it makes you stronger. It's like you're
Yeah.
building up mental muscles. It's like going
Mm-hmm.
to the gym, and every time you do it, you get stronger and stronger. That doesn't mean you
Right.
become calloused,
Right.
but you get better at handling it in a healthy manner.
Yeah. I can imagine what you do, that you see stuff that that would have been probably everyone's first thing is, let me grab alcohol to deal with that situation. I mean, I worked in a law firm where we did aviation cases, and I have seen things that I wish I would have been going to therapy back then.
Wow, like crashes or something, or
Yes, yes.
whoa. Oh,
Yeah.
I know. Speaking of crashes, like what the hell's going on with the planes?
That's what I'm saying. Like okay, the one happened, all right, accident, whatever. Then there's more. I'm like, okay, hold on. What's happening? I'm just saying, it's kind of weird.
What do you think's happening?
I don't know. I'm
You're a conspiracy theorist. Come on.
feel like that I don't know. At first I was thinking maybe it was like a terrorist situation with
That was my first thought. Yeah.
yeah, like, and hearing the information, like, okay, they were flying 100 feet over where they should have been flying. And this is a routine that they do all the time for training purposes. And there were
Feet?
100. They were supposed to be at 250 and they were at 350. That's a huge difference. And two of the flight people on board, they were experienced. So they knew they weren't supposed to be at 350. So why were they? That's weird. And then on top of it, they verified, like, hey, you see that plane? Yes, we see them. Okay, go behind it or turn this way, or that. You're experienced and you can't miss the huge plane. And helicopters can stop quickly. So if you are getting close and you're like, I don't know if going above, or, like, just stop. Let them finish and then continue. You can, because you're in a helicopter. So to me,
And then
I don't know what happened.
then you have radars that
Yeah.
pick up. Like, I don't know.
They
Was
kept
the plane coming in to land?
Yes.
basically? Okay,
Yes. They were
gotcha.
coming into land. The helicopter was doing like a routine thing, and they were wearing night vision goggles. They keep bringing up they were wearing these night vision goggles, and that hinders how you see. And I was like, but this is a routine training.
And
So
you have
this
a
isn't the
radar. Yeah.
first time that they've done this. So they know how it is with those. One. Two, again, the 100 feet difference. That to me, I'm like, hello, why? And then they keep trying to say like, oh, well, there was one guy in the tower helping with the planes landing and whatnot. There was one guy doing two people's jobs. And I'm like, but again, why did the helicopter not stop? And why were they flying 100 feet difference from what they should have been flying? To me, the one guy doing that's not his fault. Like, he's there to work, and they told some other person not to be there that day. That's not on him. So
It's gonna be a lawsuit.
I'm
Tell you that.
just, yep, it is. But I don't know. And then there's more crashes. Interesting.
It's weird. And what's really shocking is how life can be gone so quickly.
Right. All of those.
That just wakes me up. Like every
Mm-hmm.
day, I'm so glad to be alive today. I'm so glad I
Mm-hmm.
saw my kids.
Amen.
It's just wild. And you could be doing everything right. Like
Mm-hmm.
those people on the plane, they just got on,
Yeah.
but it could be someone else's error, like drinking and driving. That's why
Yes.
I don't drink. That's a big one.
Yes.
And so
I
I think
have
each,
a hard time with that. Like the drinking and driving. Not to say that I was a saint back when I used to drink a lot, but
you have a hard time dealing with people who do that, or okay, gotcha.
yeah. It just really upsets me when I see that somebody is doing that or has done that. I'm like, you don't care about your life. That's cool. That's on you. That's your life to live how you want. However, you're putting other people's lives in danger that like their life. They want to be here. They're enjoying their life. They're maybe traveling with their kids, or they're headed home from, I don't know, court or something, and they're just going about their day. And then you and your selfishness could potentially ruin their life, take them out. Like that's,
Lack of self-control.
yeah, yeah. So it's hard. I've had family members who have been the sober person and been killed in a drunk driving accident. I have also had family members who have struggled with alcohol and been the drunk driver. Thankfully, never killed or hurt anybody. However, them just potentially losing their lives and hurting somebody else has affected me. Like, I don't want to wake up one day and be like, yeah, so and so in my family destroyed another family's life because of their drinking.
And I hate to be this way, but like at a certain time, I just won't even drive anymore
Exactly.
at night.
Yeah.
Big holidays, I'm shutting
Mm-hmm.
it down.
Mm-hmm.
Just people are stupid and they do
Mm-hmm.
stupid stuff under the influence. So
Yeah.
it's crazy how people think they can only have fun while intoxicated. Is that
Right.
crazy?
Yeah. I'm like,
Like
I've
you can
had
have
so
fun
much
being
fun
sober.
without
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I like thinking, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah. And not putting other people at risk.
it's so smart. So if you could tell your younger self something, I know we've heard this question. Like, what would you tell yourself?
I would say there's a few things. One, the guy is not worth it. If he treats you like a queen, if he cares about you, you're going to know it. I mean, you shouldn't have to constantly go to him because that says something. You shouldn't have to change who you are or your beliefs or how you act for that person. That person's not for you if that's the case. The other thing is, who cares what people think? My younger self was like, hey, that's how they're dressing. That's what I'm going to do. Hey, that's, what they're listening to. That's what I'm going to listen to. Oh, that's what they're drinking, or, the pills they're taking, ex-husband, for example. Like, that's what I'm going to do because that's when I'll be seen. No, I can be seen by not doing any of those things and just being Kristi. I'll probably be seen more because they're going to be like, wow, we're
You're
over
unique.
here doing this and she's over here doing none of that.
I
I'm going to
like being
stand out
different.
more. Yeah.
Hmm.
So if I could go back and tell my younger self anything, it would be those two things.
And another thing, what are you currently showing your oldest son?
Mm,
Is he very receptive to the experiences that you've had? Yeah, and I know you might have not have necessarily shared those experiences per
right.
se, but what have you told him to kind of guide him in the right direction?
I've told him, be a leader, not a follower. You know, just because all your friends are doing it doesn't mean that it's okay. Doesn't mean that, it's a good decision. Um, you know, put your belief in God. Let God follow or lead your life where he wants you. Um, and I'm very open with him, um, especially now at this age. And if you think about it, I mean, I had him when I was 22. So I wasn't even grown myself. So I was growing up while raising a child. So he had to go through a lot of things that he shouldn't have because I wasn't grown yet. So I think that has impacted him, and maybe not always in a positive way. So I try to just explain to him things that happened and, why it happened and that it shouldn't have happened, and apologize to him for a lot of things that he had to see or witness. I was in abusive relationships over the years, and he had to see that, whether it be verbal or physical. So just really trying to teach him how to treat a woman. He knows to open the doors for me. Like, he gets very upset with me if I walk through a door and he did not open it. And he'll be like, excuse me. And I'll be like, I'm sorry, I was in a hurry. And he's like, okay, and you can wait a second. It won't take that long, Mom. And I'm like, okay, my bad. Open the
Yeah, he
door.
got you
I,
flowers
I
too.
like it.
So
I know. So I think he's really trying to make sure that he's doing the right things for me, but then that will lead into future relationships he'll have.
that's
So,
beautiful.
yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Trying to make him into a good man.
Does he, do they have any role models right now?
Yes. So, I am very close with my dad, especially, but both of my parents, they're still married, have been for, let's see, it'll be 38 years in June. Yeah. So my dad has been there for my oldest since he was little. I mean, we've lived here, at their house when he was little, a few times here and there, come back and lived at home again. So he's had my dad. So my dad is a great role model for him. And lately, he's really into motorcycles, which makes me nervous. But my uncle, Brad, that used to live next door that I grew up with, he has a couple, I'm not sure what kind they are, but they're like old school, like my son said they were like 1980s bikes. I don't know. But
Choppers.
yeah, they're like little bitty, I don't know, some sort of motorcycle type thing. And so he really looks up to my uncle, which is really cool to see because my uncle was like a huge impact on my childhood. And so to see my son looking up to him is just incredible. But he does have a couple really good role models. So one builds houses and the other one preaches on Sundays. So
Oh yeah, he's good to go.
oh yeah, he's set.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I know you talked about law school.
Hmm.
So any other goals or anything you have coming up for 2025?
Mm. Let's see. Just to really focus on my faith. Um, just diving in to the Word of God and just focusing on what He has for my life. End up dating hopefully this year. And so just really praying over the man that God has for me and the relationship that He wants for me, and not just for me, but for my boys. I want that relationship to be just a really beautiful, good Christian relationship that shows them how, one, they should treat women, and two, how their mom should be treated. That's a huge thing. Obviously, the youngest one hasn't seen a whole lot, but the oldest, he's witnessed things, and I just hope that he knows. I mean, he's said things before like, "Mom, you don't deserve that," or "Mom, why don't you leave?" So he's picked up on things, but I just really hope that this year he's able to see, you know, his mom happy and loved the right way. So, yeah. And school.
Oh yeah. That's gonna be super intense.
Yeah.
I didn't ask you, do you have a favorite verse?
I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
I already knew.
Yeah.
Philippians 4:13.
Yes, sir. I had an aunt that, man, she was incredible. Like, she wouldn't ever like make you feel any type of way, like if you weren't Christian, but you could just feel the presence of God when you were around her. And that was her favorite scripture verse. And so that's always like, since I was little, she would just tell me that all the time, like, Kristi, you can do anything that you put your mind to because God said. And I'm like, I love that. So that's really stuck with me. That's my fave. It's definitely my fave.
Yeah,
What's
that's one of my
yours?
favorites.
Yeah,
I got a whole bunch.
I bet.
The entire book of Psalms, number
Of
one.
course.
The entire book of Proverbs.
Oh, yes.
My favorite verse, I believe it's in John, but it talks about I am the vine.
I love that.
That verse, staying in him,
Mm-hmm.
like that's where I get my source of strength.
Yeah,
And so that's one that sticks out to me.
I like that.
And then obviously, it's kind of like the world is going to hell in a handbasket. Everything's just going crazy.
Is
So
it?
I think
I had no
more than
idea.
that, and then I think more than ever, you kind of need to remain close to the vine. There's so many different paths and temptations and distractions and stuff. So that's another thing I do to make sure I'm good is
Yeah.
praying and, renewing my mind and things like that. So it's definitely a journey that we're both on.
Yeah.
It's a endurance race.
Yes.
And so just being strong, because the seasons, they always change.
Yes, they do.
And as long as we keep the main thing, we'll be fine, and keep working on ourselves. So I think this kind of brings us to an end of our episode. Maybe next time we'll get into some conspiracies and why are the pyramids here and who built them.
Right.
Which I got some theories.
Okay. I'm down to hear.
But all right, look. Okay, so we'll end the episode. Thank you again for coming on and just sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And I think you're going to do a great job as an attorney. Like, your pitch and everything was amazing. The only thing I didn't ask was how much is it going to cost?
Right. So about that, no, just kidding.
I mean, do y'all do a payment plan? Do y'all do Bitcoin?
Right.
So I think you'll do great. Keep doing what you're doing and be encouraged each and every day. So it's awesome to hear how your oldest views you.
Yes.
I was super protective over my mom as well. I still am.
Yes.
Like, the last guy she dated, she hid him from me. I promise you, she hid him from me for like 7-8 months.
Oh, man.
And the first time I kind of like heard from him or heard about him, I was like, no. She already knew I wouldn't approve of the guy.
That's why she hit him.
Hit him. Just being sneaky. I should have known something was up, because she wasn't answering my calls and just being sneaky. But I love that Brantley, your son, he sees you like that. So
yeah,
Keep doing what you're doing. Be encouraged, and we'll catch you on the next one, though.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You have a good day,
You
and
too.
enjoy this weather.
Yes.
Okay.
Bye.